Tonight's story begins with a child's scream. Not the cry of a tantrum. Not the whimper of a nightmare. But a scream so raw, so soul-deep, that every person who heard it ran from the house and never came back. A boy trapped in his own body. A father drowning in guilt. A mother whose love twisted into something monstrous. And a secret hidden beneath the floorboards. Something that waits. Something that remembers. Something that wants him back. But everything changes when a new caretaker arrives. A woman with nothing left to lose. And no fear of the dark. What she finds inside Vale Manor will shake the living and rattle the dead. So lock your doors, dim your lights, and listen closely, because the footsteps you hear in this story might not be coming from your speakers. Welcome to the tale of the shadow in the walls. Before we dive in, tell me, where are you watching from right now? I love seeing where everyone's tuning in from. The cliffs of Blackthorn Reach always seemed to swallow light. Even on bright afternoons, the sky above the ocean appeared grey, as though the sun itself avoided the place. And at the edge of the cliffs stood Vale Manor, an enormous stone house with tall windows like unblinking eyes. Marina Doyle stood in front of the iron gates with her small suitcase. She had walked the last 2 miles because the carriage driver refused to go any closer. End of the line, he had said, his hands shaking slightly. I can pay extra, Marina had offered. No money worth driving up there. Not at night, not in daylight. He had practically tossed her bag out before turning the carriage around. Now, as she looked at the manor again, she understood the fear. There was something wrong about the place. Its towers twisted upward as if trying to escape the earth. The dark windows reflected nothing, not even the sky. A cold wind pushed across her skin, carrying the faint smell of seawater and something older. She touched the locket at her neck, a habit she formed since her husband died. Just get through this interview, she whispered to herself. Please let this job work out. Her 3 children were waiting back in town. Rent was overdue. This job was her only chance. The gates opened on their own with a metallic groan. Marina swallowed hard. That's a good start, she muttered, trying to smile even though her nerves were buzzing. The walkway up to the manor felt too long. The air grew colder with every step. When she reached the large oak doors, they opened before she could knock. A tall man stood inside the entry hall. He was dressed in a dark suit, his long silver hair tied back neatly. His face was handsome, but there was a sadness in his eyes that made him look ancient. You must be Mrs. Doyle, he said in a deep, smooth voice. I am Lord Thorian Vale. Marina nodded politely. Thank you for meeting me, my lord. Follow me, please. As she walked inside, she felt the house breathe. It was the only way to describe the cold draft that moved past her, as though the manor were exhaling. The entrance hall was enormous, with tall portraits of long-dead ancestors staring down at her. Shadows clung to the corners even though candles burned all along the walls. Is it always this cold? She asked before she could stop herself. Thorian paused. The house is old, he said simply. It has a way of keeping its memories. That answer didn't comfort her. He led her into a study filled with leather-bound books and old maps. A fire burned in the hearth, but the warmth didn't seem to spread. Please sit, Thorian said. Marina sat stiffly on the edge of a velvet chair. Thorian remained standing. I will be direct, Mrs. Doyle, he began. My son, Elias, is ill. Terribly ill. The doctors say it is because he is a hybrid, part vampire, part human. Marina blinked. She had heard the rumors, but she didn't expect him to say it so plainly. You mean, you are? Yes. Thorian said it without pride or shame. I am vampire. My late wife was human. Our son is both. He paced slowly across the study, hands behind his back. He cannot walk. His limbs are stiff. Most days, he barely moves. He cannot speak, though he understands. He requires constant care. Marina listened carefully. She had worked with disabled children before, but this sounded different. The job pays very well, he added. You will live here. You will care for him during the day. At night, his voice trembled slightly. At night, He screams. Screams. Marina repeated. Every night at exactly 12:04 a.m. He screams for hours. Nothing, medicine, magic, comfort, nothing stops it. Marina frowned. Has anyone tried staying with him through the night? The muscles in Thorian's jaw tightened. Every caretaker we hired left within a week. Some lasted only one night. They claimed the house is haunted. That something walks the halls. He looked away, his voice almost a whisper. Some said they saw a woman's shape lingering near the west wing. A shape that should not exist. Marina's chest tightened, but she forced her voice to stay steady. And you? Do you believe them? Thorian hesitated. I believe my son suffers. And I cannot bear it any longer. If you accept this job, Mrs. Doyle, you must not run. His eyes met hers, pleading, desperate. Marina thought of her children. She thought of the rent. She thought of Elias, a child screaming alone while caretakers ran away. I won't run, she said softly. Thorian let out a long breath, as though relieved. You begin now. He led her through the hallways. The deeper they went, the colder the air became. Shadows clung to the ceilings like smoke. When they reached Elias's room, Marina instantly felt an invisible weight settle in her chest. The door was carved with symbols she didn't recognize. Thorian opened it gently. Inside, the room was dim. A child-sized bed with iron bars stood near a large window that overlooked the crashing waves below. A wheelchair sat beside the bed. And in the wheelchair sat a small boy. Elias Vale had pale skin, dark hair that fell in soft curls, and enormous grey eyes that looked too tired for someone so young. His hands were curled in his lap, stiff and unmoving. Elias, Thorian said quietly, this is Mrs. Doyle. She will be taking care of you. The boy's eyes flicked toward Marina, quick, sharp, intelligent. Not the gaze of a child lost in illness. The gaze of someone trying very hard to communicate something urgent. Marina knelt beside him. Hello, Elias. I'm very glad to meet you. His eyelids fluttered. He took a slow, shaky breath. Thorian cleared his throat. He rarely reacts to anyone. Marina touched Elias's hand gently. It was cold as ice. But the moment she touched him, his fingers twitched. Thorian stared in shock. He hasn't moved his fingers in months. Marina smiled softly. He just needs someone to listen. Elias's eyes filled with tears, silent tears that rolled down his cheeks without him making a sound. A chill crawled up Marina's back. Not because she was afraid of the child, but because this child had cried like this for a long, long time. When Thorian left the room to fetch supplies, Marina leaned closer. Elias, she whispered. I don't know what's happening here. But I'm here now. I won't leave you. The boy's lips parted slightly. And then, somewhere in the hallway, she heard it. A slow, dragging step. As if someone very large, or very heavy, was walking toward Elias's door. Elias's eyes widened. Tears streamed faster. His breathing turned sharp, terrified. Marina stood up slowly, heart pounding. Another step. Closer. She stepped toward the door, unsure whether she wanted to open it or run. And just as she reached the handle, silence. Too much silence. Her hand shook as she pulled the door open. No one was in the hallway. But the air. The air felt like someone had just been standing there, watching. The following morning, sunlight struggled to enter Elias's room. It fell in weak yellow streaks across the floor, unable to warm the cold stone walls. Marina hadn't slept much. The sound of those footsteps echoed in her mind. But she decided not to mention them, not yet. Thorian returned shortly after sunrise carrying a tray of medicine bottles and a careful, controlled expression. Did you sleep at all? He asked. Some, Marina lied. Good. Elias has a routine medication every 2 hours, stretching exercises for his limbs, and supervised time in the garden. Though he doesn't go outside much. Marina nodded politely, though she already suspected half the routine did nothing to help him. Will you be available to help? She asked gently. Thorian stiffened. I have business. Meetings. Responsibilities. Marina looked at Elias, who was watching his father with wide, aching eyes. He needs you. Thorian swallowed. I will try. He left the room too quickly. When the door closed, Elias let out a soft, pitiful sound, something between a whimper and a sigh. Marina sat across from him. You miss him, don't you? Elias blinked once. Okay, she said softly. Let's learn how to talk to each other. Blink once for yes, twice for no. The boy blinked once. Good, she said, smiling. Are you scared? One blink. Because of the footsteps. One blink, fast, urgent. A shiver ran up her spine. All right, she whispered. We'll take this slowly. Did this start after your mother passed away? Elias's eyes darkened. 2 blinks, no. Before she died. 1 blink, yes. Her breath caught. So something was wrong even before she passed. Elias's gaze dropped to his hands. She took his hand gently. Elias, who hurt you? The boy's lower lip trembled. His eyes filled again. 1 blink. Marina felt tears pressing behind her own eyes. This child had been trying to speak for so long. No one had listened. Okay, she said carefully. Let's talk about last night. Did you hear the footsteps too? 1 blink. Do they come every night? 1 blink. Do you know who or what it is? Elias froze. His breathing quickened. His eyes darted toward the hallway door. Marina immediately shook her head. It's okay. You don't need to answer that yet. She stayed beside him until he calmed. Then she wheeled him to the window. The cliffs outside were beautiful in a dangerous way. Waves crashed against the rocks far below, sending white spray into the air. You live in a powerful place, she said. Strong winds. Strong ocean. Strong shadows. Elias made a small sound, not quite a laugh, but close. They spent the next hour practicing eye movements to communicate simple things. Left glance no. Right glance yes. Blink once strong yes. Blink twice strong no. He was bright. Quick. Desperate to be understood. As she fed him breakfast, he watched her hands with intense focus, like he was studying the way she moved, the softness in her face, the rhythm of her voice. Marina told him stories about her children, how Miguel tried to fix every machine he found, how little Rosa loved drawing flowers, how Thomas dreamed of sailing. Elias listened like her words were music. You can be part of our stories too, she said. If you want. He blinked once, firmly. A sudden knock on the door made Elias flinch violently. Easy, she whispered, placing a calming hand on his shoulder. The door creaked open. It was Lady Irina, the house steward, thin, sharp-featured, with silver hair pulled tightly back. She moved with the stiff posture of someone who refused to show fear. Lord Vale requests Mrs. Doyle downstairs, Irina said coldly. The boy will be fine alone. Elias let out a strangled, panicked sound. Marina stood at once. No, she said firmly. He's terrified. Irina narrowed her eyes. Mrs. Doyle, you are new. You do not understand the rules. The only rule I care about, Marina said, is that he's not left alone. Elias's breathing steadied slightly. Irina's expression tightened. Very well. But Lord Vale will not enjoy being told to wait. Marina turned back to Elias. I'll be right back, she promised. I won't be long. Elias blinked twice, no. Strong no. I'll hurry, she whispered. She followed Irina down the long hallway. The shadows seemed longer today. Darker. Strangely alive. When they reached the marble staircase, Marina stopped. The door to the west wing, the part of the manor Thorian claimed was sealed, was open a crack. Not much. Just enough to show the darkness inside. Marina whispered, has that door always been like that? Irina's face drained of color. It is supposed to remain sealed at all times. So who opened it? Irina didn't answer. Her hands were trembling. Somewhere deep inside the west wing. A soft, dragging sound echoed. Like something shifting its weight. Waiting. Irina backed away immediately. Do not look at it. Do not go near it. Marina felt her heartbeat pounding in her ears. What's in there? She whispered. Irina shook her head slowly. In this house, Mrs. Doyle, some things should never be found. Marina didn't sleep the second night either. After finishing Elias's evening care, she sat in the rocking chair near his bed, pretending to read a book while secretly listening to every sound in the hallway. Her nerves were sharp, thin as glass. Elias sensed her tension. His eyes kept darting between the door and her face. "I'm not leaving," she whispered. His lashes lowered slightly, a tiny sign of relief. But as the night deepened, the entire atmosphere of the manor shifted. It wasn't just cold now. It felt alert, as if the house were awakening. Wind pressed against the windows. The walls seemed to hum. Shadows stretched in ways that made no sense. At 12:04 a.m., Elias's breathing hitched. Marina set her book down. "It's all right, sweetheart." Then it began. Elias's mouth opened into a silent scream. No sound came yet, only pure terror. His body stiffened violently, his fingers curled tight. His eyes shone with panic. Marina rushed to him. Hey, look at me. I'm here." He clung to her with his gaze, but she felt the fear pulsing off him like heat. Then they heard it. A long, slow, dragging step in the hallway. Thud. Drag. Thud. Drag. Elias whimpered, his first clear sound of the night. A thin, broken cry. Marina froze. The footsteps were heavier than the night before. And closer. Her breath trembled as she whispered, "Someone's out there." Elias blinked sharply, one blink, yes. Another step. Then another. The shadows under the door thickened as though something stood right outside it. Marina's voice broke. "Lord Vale." Silence. Elias squeezed his eyes shut as if bracing for pain. A loud thump hit the door. Marina jerked back, instincts firing. She positioned herself between Elias and the door. "All right," she whispered shakily. "You want to come in? Then come in." Her words felt braver than she felt. Silence again. Then, slow, crackling breathing slipped through the doorframe. Not human breathing. Not even close. The air turned icy. Frost gathered on the doorknob. And then, nothing. The footsteps stopped. The breathing faded. The temperature rose by a fraction. Marina exhaled shakily, realizing she'd been holding her breath. Elias sagged against his pillow, trembling. She moved to the door, pressing her ear against it. No movement. No breath. No sound at all. Her hand hovered over the handle. "Should I open it?" she whispered. Elias's eyes widened, twice strong no. She stepped back immediately. "Okay. I won't." They stayed like that for nearly an hour, waiting, listening, barely breathing. When Elias finally drifted into an exhausted sleep, Marina sat upright, back aching, mind racing. Something was happening in this house. Something beyond illness. Beyond ghosts. Something alive or half alive was walking these halls. But morning brought new questions. Irina entered the room stiffly, carrying a breakfast tray. She avoided eye contact and kept her gaze low. "You survived the night," she commented coldly. "Most do not. Most caretakers run away," Marina said. "Why are you still here?" Irina's hand tightened around the tray. "Because I swore loyalty to the family. Even if something's hurting their child." Irina's eyes snapped up, sharp, icy. "There are truths in this house that do not belong to you." Marina stepped forward. "Elias is terrified. Someone or something is coming to his door every night." Irina's face went pale, but she didn't speak. Marina lowered her voice. "What is in the West Wing?" Irina's silence was thick and heavy. "Irina," Marina whispered, "I'm not leaving this boy alone. He needs someone to fight for him." The older woman closed her eyes, a long shiver running through her. "Finally," she whispered, "some doors in this house were never meant to be opened again." Marina didn't get the chance to question further. Because as she walked toward Elias's bed, something white on the floor caught her eye. A sheet of thick paper. She picked it up slowly. A child's drawing. Dark scribbles. Jagged lines. A tall, looming shape. A staircase spiraling downward. And a small figure curled into a tight ball at the bottom. The signature on the corner was small. E.V. Elias Vale. She turned the drawing over. More papers littered the floor beneath the nightstand. She dropped to her knees and pulled each one out. Every picture was worse than the last. That tall figure again. Red scribbles for eyes. Sharp limbs. And the same staircase descending into a block of darkness. A recurring symbol, a broken circle. Marina stared at the artwork, heart hammering. He had drawn these in absolute terror. She looked at the boy sleeping restlessly. "What did they do to you?" she whispered. Her voice shook with a fresh realization. Elias wasn't imagining something. He was remembering it. Later that afternoon, Thorian entered the room with a stiff, polite expression that cracked the moment he saw the scattered drawings on the floor. His eyes widened. "Where did you get those?" Marina stood, holding the drawings against her chest like evidence. "They were under his nightstand. He hid them." Thorian's face went pale. "Those drawings. I thought. I burned all of them." Marina's breath hitched. "You what?" Thorian stepped back as if distancing himself from the sight. "He was drawing them months ago, before you came." Elias watched from his wheelchair, eyes full of pain. "Why burn them?" Marina demanded. "To stop frightening him," Thorian said too quickly. Marina shook her head. "No. These aren't meaningless drawings. They're messages. Cries for help." Thorian's forehead tightened. "Mrs. Doyle. These pictures show the same figure," she continued, lifting one. "Always tall, always twisted. And this," she held up the drawing of the staircase. "This place frightens him more than anything else." Thorian's mouth set in a hard line. "Stop. He's trying to tell us something happened to him," Marina pressed. "Something before I got here. Something before your wife died." Thorian flinched as if she had struck him. "I told you," he said quietly, "Seraphine had struggles." "Struggles?" Marina stepped closer, refusing to back down. "She was experimenting on him, wasn't she?" Thorian's jaw trembled. "She was trying to cure him. By hurting him?" His voice cracked with anger and grief. "By trying to remove his suffering." Marina threw the drawings onto the bed. Elias flinched at the sight. "You think these drawings show a child who was feeling better?" Thorian broke then. His voice dropped, heavy with guilt. "I didn't know. Not at first. Seraphine told me she was researching cures. She said she could balance his blood. Make him stronger." Marina crossed her arms. "What did she actually do?" He pressed a hand to his forehead. "I found her one night, with him, with her tools, with her formulas." His voice cracked. "She changed. She became obsessed. She believed the human part of him was a flaw. She wanted to burn it away." Marina felt sick. "You didn't stop her?" His eyes filled with an immortal sorrow. "I tried. But by then, she was already lost." Elias watched his father intently. His eyes held tears, but also a strange calm. As if this truth wasn't surprising at all. As if he had known. Marina turned back to the drawings. She spread them on the blanket. Not too close. Not touching the boy. Each drawing had the same shape. A figure, towering and twisted, always with long limbs and a bent posture. And the same staircase leading downward. Marina pointed to the broken circle symbol. "What does this mean?" Thorian's eyes widened with disbelief. "He drew that." "Yes. Many times." Thorian whispered, almost to himself, "This is an ancient symbol. It marks rituals that breach the boundary between life and death." Marina's throat tightened. How would a child know that? Thorian stared at his son, eyes full of horror and dawning understanding. "Because Seraphine used that sigil in her work." "So that's what he remembers," Marina said softly. "He remembers the place she took him. The things she did." Thorian collapsed into the chair beside the window, his hands shaking. "I sealed that part of the house," he whispered. "The West Wing. I locked it with blood-binding magic. No one should be able to go there." Marina froze. "Thorian." Her voice was barely a breath. "That door was open last night." Thorian stared at her, horror widening his eyes. "No. That is impossible. It was open, she insisted. Only a little. But enough. Thorian stood abruptly. Then someone in this house, someone alive, is breaking the seal. Marina hesitated. There was something else. Something she needed to say. Thorian, the footsteps don't sound like a living person. His face drained of color. Mrs. Doyle. They sound heavy, she pressed. Slow. Dragging. Like something carrying weight it shouldn't be carrying. Elias began trembling. Violently. Marina rushed to him. Hey, it's okay. I've got you. But he wasn't calming. He was staring past her, toward the hallway. Marina turned. The hallway was empty. But an icy draft drifted through the door as if someone had just walked by. She grabbed Elias's hand. Do you know who it is? She whispered. Elias blinked once, yes. Do you know what it wants? A single tear slid down his cheek. One slow blink. Yes. Thorian stepped closer. Elias, is it coming for you? Elias didn't blink. He stared at both of them, eyes wide, breathing fast. Then, barely, his head tilted. Toward the west wing. Marina whispered the words that hung heavily in all their minds. It's coming from that place, isn't it? Elias blinked once. The truth settled like ice through the room. Something in the west wing wasn't resting. Something Seraphine left behind. Something tied to Elias's suffering. Marina picked up the drawing of the staircase and looked at the dark pit at the bottom. Thorian, she said softly, I don't think your wife was the only one down there. Thorian's face hardened, his voice dropping to a whisper. Then we must go there. All of us. We must face whatever waits in that darkness. Elias let out a soft, anguished cry. And for the first time, the house itself seemed to react. The lights flickered, the air grew sharp, and somewhere deep within the west wing, a low, dragging sound echoed. Waiting for them. The morning after they studied the drawings, a thick fog rolled over Blackthorn Reach. It pressed against the manor walls like a living thing. Even inside the house, the air felt heavier, as if the ocean mist had seeped into the wallpaper and the carpets. Marina found Thorian in the study, staring at a portrait of Seraphine Vale, his late wife. It was the only portrait in the manor that looked warm. She had long black hair, green eyes, and a gentle smile. But now, after what Marina had learned, the smile felt wrong, too soft, too perfect for a woman who had performed rituals on her own son. Thorian didn't turn when Marina entered. His voice was low, cracked with guilt. You want the truth. She closed the study door behind her. I do. Elias needs it. Thorian let out a slow breath, hands trembling. My wife was brilliant, he began. Too brilliant. She was born with an unusual sensitivity to the spiritual world. She saw things we could not see. She heard whispers I thought were dreams. He finally turned toward Marina. She loved Elias more than anything. But the moment he was born, she sensed something in him. Something she believed was wrong. Marina stepped closer. What do you mean? Thorian looked at the ground, ashamed. She believed hybrid children were unstable. That they would suffer. That the human side trapped the vampiric side, causing pain, confusion, nightmares. Marina felt her stomach twist. So she wanted to remove his human part. He nodded miserably. She believed she could fix him. Make him strong. Free him from pain forever. By experimenting on him, Marina whispered. Thorian ran a hand through his silver hair. She told me she was researching a cure for his twitching and stiffness. She told me she was using herbs and tinctures to ease his pain. I believed her. His voice cracked. I was wrong. What happened? Marina asked softly. Thorian's eyes darkened. One night. I returned home late from a meeting. She was in the west wing. I heard Elias crying. He was 5 years old then. His cry wasn't normal. It was broken. Marina leaned in. What did you see? Thorian's hands shook violently. She had him strapped to a stone table. She was holding a glass vial with a glowing liquid. The room stank of burnt herbs and blood. She pressed symbols into his skin with heated metal. Marina covered her mouth with her hand. Thorian's voice lowered to a hollow whisper. She said she was helping him transcend. That she was removing the flaw. That she was saving him. And she believed every word. Marina stared at the portrait. The woman in the painting didn't look like someone capable of torture. But obsession could twist anyone. You stopped her? Marina asked. I tore him from her. I carried him upstairs and called the clan healers. But it was too late. She had already begun her rituals. He sank into a chair. She became worse after that. She said I betrayed their child. She locked herself in the West Wing for days at a time. She wrote in her journals obsessively. And then one morning, he paused, swallowing thickly. She walked straight into the ocean. The waves never gave her back. Silence hung heavy in the room. Marina spoke softly. You didn't kill her. Her obsession did. Thorian shook his head. But I failed to protect Elias from her. Marina put her hand on his arm. You're trying to protect him now. He looked at her with eyes almost ancient with sorrow. Something from her rituals still lingers here, he whispered. I feel it in these walls. I hear it at night. I have tried to convince myself it was memory. Grief. Nothing more. But. He paused. But the seal on the West Wing was broken, Marina finished for him. Thorian nodded. And Elias hears the footsteps. Marina breathed out slowly. So you believe her spirit is still here? He shook his head violently. No. Not her spirit. Seraphine's spirit is gone. She walked into the sea, and her kind do not linger after such a death. Marina froze. Then what's in the West Wing? Thorian's voice dropped to a terrified whisper. I think she awakened something. Something older. Something that claimed the West Wing the moment she opened a door she should never have touched. A chilling silence filled the room. Marina swallowed hard. What do we do? Thorian stood slowly, his face pale but determined. We go down there, he said. Together. We see what she left behind. They returned to Elias's room. The child sat in his wheelchair, waiting for them. He already knew what they planned. His eyes glistened with fear as Thorian approached. The boy made a soft, pleading sound. No, he whispered. It was barely a word, but both adults heard it. You spoke, Marina breathed. Elias shook his head weakly, tears falling. Thorian knelt beside him. We have to go, he whispered. We must see what hurt you. We must stop it. Elias looked from his father to Marina, trembling. Marina knelt too. We will not go without you seeing everything. You won't be left behind. You will be protected. Elias's hands twitched, tiny movements of fear. But after a long moment, he blinked once. Yes. Permission. Marina felt a cold rush of courage. They lifted Elias gently into Thorian's arms, and together the three walked into the hallway. The house seemed to hold its breath as they moved. And the deeper they walked, the darker the shadows became. Blue Book Chapter 6, Midnight. The Walls Move, elaborated version. They reached the entrance to the West Wing. The massive iron door stood half open, a sliver of blackness spilling through like ink. Marina felt the cold hit her first. Not normal cold. The kind that crawls inside your bones and sits there, breathing. Thorian held Elias close. The boy buried his face in his father's shoulder. I sealed this with blood magic, Thorian whispered. It should not open unless the one who sealed it breaks it. Marina touched the door carefully. Ice crawled across her fingertips. Maybe someone else knows blood magic, she said. Thorian shook his head. Only a vampire of my bloodline can undo my seal. Marina's eyes widened. Then who? A deep creaking sound echoed from the darkness beyond the door. Thorian's voice trembled. Not who. What? They stepped inside. The air was thick, stale, and heavy with the scent of old herbs, dust, and something metallic. The hallways were narrower here. The wallpaper was cracked. Shadowy smudges stained the walls, circles that looked like symbols wiped away by violence. Marina whispered, "It feels like the house changes here." Thorian nodded. This wing was built differently. Old rituals linger, even after centuries. A soft hum seemed to vibrate through the floor. They entered the first room. It looked like a laboratory frozen in time. Broken vials. Herbs blackened to ash. Drawings pinned to the walls, Elias's face sketched in various states of pain. Strange instruments made of silver, bone, and metal. Marina gasped. "Oh, Elias." Thorian's grip on his son tightened. "This is where she worked," he whispered. "This is where she tried to cure you." Elias whimpered softly. His eyes begged them to leave. But something deeper in the room caught Marina's attention. On the stone floor was a circle carved into the tiles, an almost perfect ring, except for a sharp break on one side. The broken circle. The symbol Elias drew over and over. "Thorian," Marina said, pointing, This is the symbol from his drawings." Thorian dropped to his knees. "Oh no," he whispered. "She didn't just open rituals. She broke them. She let something through." "What kind of something?" Marina asked. Thorian shook his head. "I don't know. But whatever it is, it didn't leave." A sudden gust of cold air blew through the room. Elias cried out a high, thin, terrified sound. Then the walls began to move. No. Not move. Shift. The shadows stretched upward, gathering on the ceiling like ink spreading through water. Marina felt her breath leave her lungs. "Thorian," she whispered. "We're not alone." Thorian stepped backward, clutching Elias protectively. A soft humming began to rise from the broken circle, like a voice trying to form itself from the cracks. The shadows thickened, swirling into a shape. A shape almost human. But twisted. Long-limbed. Bent. Wrong. A voice, female and fractured, whispered from the walls. "Return what you stole." Elias's scream tore through the room, a raw shriek full of terror. The shadows lunged toward them. Thorian swung the lantern he carried. "Back," he shouted. "Stay back." The light pushed the shadow slightly, but not enough. Marina grabbed a silver tool from the table, holding it tightly. "Thorian," she shouted. "Get out. Move." The twisted shadow lunged again, closer this time, its shape merging with the ceiling. Elias clung to his father, sobbing. "Pa, Pa." The word broke in half. Thorian's breath hitched. "You spoke," he whispered, stunned. But there was no time for softness. The shadow dropped from the ceiling with a deafening crack. Thorian sprinted out of the room with Elias in his arms. Marina ran behind him, heart pounding as the shadow creature slammed against the walls. Doors opened and closed on their own. Portraits fell. Candles blew out. The entire West Wing came alive. The monster's voice chased them through the hallway. "Return what you stole, return, return." Thorian didn't stop running until they reached the main hall of the manor, where the old, safe air returned and the shadows eased. He collapsed to the floor, holding Elias tightly. Marina slammed the West Wing door shut. Thorian's hands shook as he whispered, "That was not Seraphine. That was something else. Something she woke. Something she fed." Elias looked up, tears streaming down his pale cheeks. His lips parted, and he whispered a single word. "Stairs." Marina froze. "You want us to go down the stairs?" she asked softly. Elias blinked once, yes. But his body trembled violently, as if terrified of his own answer. Thorian looked up. "The stairs," he whispered. "The ones she drew. The ones in all his pictures." Marina's heart hammered. "The stairs under the house." Thorian swallowed hard. "Then the real horror isn't in the West Wing." He looked down at Elias, his voice a breath. "It's below us." The house did not return to normal after they fled the West Wing. The walls still seemed to breathe. The floors still hummed. Even the air felt watchful, waiting for them to make their next move. Thorian paced the hall outside Elias's room, running a trembling hand through his silver hair. Marina sat beside the boy, stroking his hair gently. His small body still shook from the encounter, every breath coming in thin, frightened gasps. "We can't stay up here," Thorian said quietly. "It's not safe." Marina looked at the boy. He's exhausted. He can't be dragged around the house again. Thorian didn't answer. His gaze was fixed on the floor. His eyes weren't empty, they were calculating. remembering, fearing. Marina walked to him. What are you thinking? Thorian swallowed hard. You saw the drawings, he whispered. The staircase. The dungeon-like pit. He looked toward the ground beneath them. The West Wing was only her laboratory on the surface. But her true work, the ritual work, was below us. Marina's breath caught. The basement. He shook his head slowly. Deeper. Elias whimpered at that word. Marina rushed back to him. It's okay, sweetheart, she whispered. We won't let anything hurt you. But Elias shook his head. A slow, weak, terrified shake. He lifted one stiff arm, barely an inch, and pointed toward the floorboards. Down. Below. Marina felt her heart drop. It wants us to go there, she whispered. Thorian nodded solemnly. Whatever is hurting him, whatever Seraphine awakened, it's feeding from below the house. Silence wrapped around them. Finally, Marina stood. Then we go. Thorian hesitated. You would follow me willingly into a place like that? Marina glared at him. He is a child, Thorian. And something tortured him down there. I won't let it stay alive another day. A flicker of respect appeared in Thorian's eyes. He lifted Elias gently, the boy clinging to him as if he feared the air itself. They left the room and headed to the central hall. Marina felt the change immediately. The whole house was quieter. Too quiet. As if the walls were listening. Thorian reached a door she had never noticed before, a narrow wooden door set behind a heavy tapestry. He pulled the tapestry aside. This door, he whispered, leads to the oldest part of the manor. A place even I have avoided. Marina gripped the cold metal knob. Then let's get this over with. Thorian nodded and opened the door. A blast of icy air rushed out. A narrow staircase spiraled downward into darkness. The same staircase from Elias's drawings. Elias let out a thin cry, burying his face in Thorian's chest. It's okay, my son, Thorian murmured. We are with you. Marina lit the lantern she held. The flame flickered as if frightened. They stepped onto the stairs. The wood groaned under their feet, as though warning them to turn back. The deeper they descended, the more the air changed, thicker, colder, almost metallic. Eventually, the stairs ended at a stone corridor lined with iron sconces and walls carved with old runes. Some runes glowed faintly, like dying embers. Marina touched one. It pulsed under her fingers. Blood magic, Thorian murmured. Ancient. Seraphine reopened something that should have stayed sealed forever. They continued walking until they reached a wide stone chamber. Marina gasped. It was far worse than she imagined. Tables covered in half-rotted herbs and bottles of dark liquids. Books stacked in piles, pages torn, scrawled with madness. Drawings on the walls, dozens of them, overlapping scribbles of symbols, diagrams, and twisted silhouettes. In the center of the chamber sat a massive stone table. Chains bolted to its sides. A child-sized indentation carved into the middle. Elias whimpered, shrinking into his father's chest. Marina felt her knees weaken. She strapped him here. Thorian's voice shook. This is where I found them. This was her true workshop. Marina stepped closer to the table, lantern trembling in her hand. Dark stains marked the stone. Some old. Some frighteningly fresh. She looked at the shelves on the far wall. Jars. Hundreds of jars. Some empty. Some filled with dark red liquid. One jar caught her eye. It was marked with painted symbols and a name. EV Phase 2. Marina staggered back, breath catching. Oh, Elias. Thorian clutched the boy tighter, his face hollow. I couldn't bear to come down here, he whispered. After she died, I sealed the West Wing. I thought, if I sealed the memory, the evil would die. Marina touched his arm. You didn't understand what this place was. He shook his head. I didn't want to understand. Then Elias made a sound, a high, fearful noise. Marina rushed to him. What is it, sweetheart? He didn't blink. He didn't look at the table. He looked past her. Toward the back of the chamber. Where a second doorway stood half hidden behind old curtains. A doorway leading further down. The iron frame around it was cracked and twisted, like something had forced its way through. Marina whispered, "Thorian, did you know this door existed?" He shook his head, horrified. "No. Seraphine only told me about this chamber." "What's behind that door?" He lifted the lantern. The flame flickered violently, almost extinguishing. They approached slowly. Behind the doorway was a narrow stone hall leading to another chamber, one filled with scorch marks, broken symbols, and a massive iron circle carved into the floor. But the circle wasn't whole. It had been broken open. Marina whispered, This is the broken circle from the drawings." Thorian nodded grimly. "Yes. This is where she broke the ritual." Elias whimpered louder. Marina knelt. "Elias, sweetheart, can you show me what happened here?" He blinked once, yes. Then slowly, painfully, he lifted one arm and pointed toward the iron circle. Marina's breath trembled. "He remembers," she whispered. "Everything." Thorian nodded, voice low. "This place scarred him. Not physically, spiritually. Something touched him here." Suddenly, a whisper floated from the darkness. Faint. Female. Broken. "You should not have come." Marina froze. Thorian stiffened. The shadows on the walls pulled together, twisting into a shape. A tall, distorted silhouette. Long limbs. Bent posture. Hollow eyes. Exactly like the one in Elias's drawings. Marina grabbed Thorian's arm. "Oh God." The creature stepped closer, dragging one foot as though chained to something unseen. Elias screamed, a jagged, raw sound that tore from his throat. The creature's voice hissed. "Return what was taken, return him." Thorian backed away, clutching Elias. "You will not touch him," he shouted. The creature moved faster. The lantern flickered violently. The shadows surged. Marina threw herself in front of Thorian and Elias. The creature's hollow voice echoed through the chamber. "He belongs below." Thorian roared, shifting partially into his vampire form, eyes glowing red, fangs lengthening. "You will not have my son." The creature lunged. Marina grabbed the nearest object, a heavy alchemical blade, and slashed the air. The creature recoiled as if struck. A scream, sharp, ringing, unnatural, filled the room. The shadows retreated into the corners, quivering like living ink. Marina dropped the blade, chest heaving. Thorian lifted the lantern higher. The creature melted into the wall. And disappeared. Only silence remained. Then, a footstep echoed from above them. A real, physical footstep. Marina jerked her head upward. "That's not the creature," she whispered. Thorian's eyes narrowed. "No. That is someone alive." More footsteps. Descending. Slow. Controlled. Purposeful. Marina held the lantern tightly. Elias trembled so violently Thorian had to whisper comfort into his ear. The footsteps reached the final staircase into the chamber. A figure stood at the top step, holding a black medical bag. Marina's heart dropped. Thorian's face hardened, turning to stone. Dr. Selim Reich stepped into the lantern light, calm as ever. His eyes glowed with cold certainty. "I wondered how long it would take you to break the seal," the doctor said softly. Marina stepped in front of Thorian and Elias. "You." Her voice shook with rage. "You've been coming down here." Reich smiled, a thin, chilling smile. "Of course I have." Thorian's voice turned deadly. "What have you done?" Reich stepped down onto the broken circle. "Only what Seraphine began." The doctor walked into the chamber with the calm confidence of someone who believed himself untouchable. His footsteps echoed through the stone room, each one a slow, deliberate strike against the silence. Marina's grip on the lantern tightened. She positioned herself between Reich and Elias. Thorian's eyes glowed red with growing fury. But Dr. Reich simply looked around the chamber as though visiting an old friend. "I see Seraphine's work remains intact," he murmured with a faint smile. "Even after all these years." Thorian stepped forward. "You told me her research was harmless. You swore you were helping our son." Reich lifted a brow, amused. "I did help him. I helped continue her vision." Marina's stomach twisted. Her vision was torture. No, Reich said with a polite shake of his head. Her vision was evolution. He crouched beside the broken iron circle on the floor. This symbol, he said, tracing it with his gloved fingers, is a gateway. A breach between mortal and immortal essence. Seraphine used Elias to open it. Thorian snarled. She used him because she was insane. Reich looked up with calm stillness. Insane? No, my lord. Prophetic. Marina stepped forward, voice sharp. Elias was a child. She hurt him. You hurt him. Reich's eyes flicked to her with cold disinterest. Children are symbols of potential, Mrs. Doyle. He was simply the most valuable subject. Thorian's rage erupted. You experimented on him after her death. Reich didn't flinch. I perfected her methods. Her attempts were sloppy, driven by emotion. Mine were controlled. Clean. Scientific. Marina felt bile crawl up her throat. You monster. Reich's expression didn't change. Words of simple people. He straightened and opened his black medical bag. Inside lay an array of syringes, vials, and silver tools etched with vampiric runes. Elias whimpered, shrinking into Thorian's chest. Reich removed a vial filled with a glowing blue liquid. This is the final phase, he said. The one Seraphine died before completing. With this, the human side will finally be silenced forever. Thorian stepped back, baring his fangs. You will not touch him. Reich tilted his head. You misunderstand, my lord. I do not need your permission. The ritual has already claimed him. He stepped forward. Marina put her arm out. Stay where you are, she snapped. Reich looked at her like she was dust on his shoe. You have no authority here, he said. You are a caretaker. A mortal. Nothing more. Thorian roared. But before he could leap at Reich, Elias spoke. His voice was small. Broken. But clear. No. Reich froze. It was the first time Elias had spoken a full, deliberate sound since he was 5 years old. Reich's face twisted into irritation. Hush, child. You are not meant to speak. Thorian lunged. He grabbed Reich by the throat and slammed him against the stone wall with a force that shook dust from the ceiling. The doctor choked, but still managed to look smug. You can kill me, he croaked. But that won't break the binding. Elias is linked to the breach. Thorian's grip tightened. Then I'll enjoy killing you slowly. Marina rushed forward. Thorian, stop. He didn't. He lifted Reich higher. The doctor's feet kicked helplessly. Elias cried out a raw, terrified sound. Pa, stop. Thorian froze. Elias's trembling hand reached toward him, begging. Thorian's fury cracked. Slowly, he lowered the doctor to the ground. Reich gasped for air, smirking even through the pain. You see, he rasped. He is becoming what he was meant to become. Powerful. Divine. Thorian's voice was the low growl of a beast. You will never touch my son again. He turned toward the shadows and shouted a single vampiric command. A command that summoned his personal guards, hidden in the estate at all times. 2 large figures emerged from the darkness behind the doctor, silent as stone. Reich's eyes widened. What? Thorian's voice was ice. Take him to the high tower. Chain him. He will face the council. Yes, my lord, one guard said. They seized the doctor. Reich struggled violently. No, you don't understand. If you break the connection, the creature will rise. The child is the key. He twisted, screaming. He belongs to the breach. He belongs. Thorian slammed the butt of a lantern into Reich's temple. The doctor fell silent. Take him away. The guards dragged him up the stairs, his frantic shrieks fading into the distance. The chamber settled. The shadows loosened. The oppressive air eased. Marina turned to Thorian. He stood frozen, shaking, holding Elias like he was made of fragile glass. Thorian, she whispered. It's over. But the boy shook his head. No. His voice was breathy and broken. No, not over. He pointed to the broken circle. Marina felt the cold rise again. The creature's whisper echoed through the chamber. The door is open. And the floor beneath them began to tremble. The chamber trembled beneath their feet, soft at first, like a heartbeat pulsing through the stone. Then stronger. Deeper. A vibration rising from the earth itself. Elias clung to Thorian, crying into his father's shoulder. Marina steadied herself against the wall as dust fell from the ceiling. "What's happening?" she whispered. Thorian looked at the broken ritual circle, its cracked shape now glowing faintly red, as if waking. "He was telling the truth," Thorian murmured. "Killing the doctor changed nothing. The breach is still open." Marina stepped closer to the circle. "What does it want?" Thorian swallowed. "Not what. Who?" Elias whimpered, burying his face against his father's chest. The circle pulsed again. Slow. Steady. Alive. "We have to stop it," Marina said. Thorian shook his head. It took Seraphine months. It took her blood, her knowledge, her mind. And even she failed to close it. Marina pointed toward the glowing crack. She opened it. "Elias is connected to it. That means he can help us close it." Thorian's eyes widened. "No. Absolutely not. He has suffered enough." Elias lifted his head. Tears streaked his pale cheeks. But he looked Marina in the eye and blinked once. "Yes. I won't let you," Thorian whispered, holding him tightly. Elias pressed his hand against his father's chest and whispered, voice trembling. "Pa, please." Thorian closed his eyes. He had fought wars. Faced immortal enemies. But nothing hurt like a child's plea. Marina stepped beside them. "Thorian," she said gently, "he's not choosing to suffer. He's choosing to end it." The trembling grew stronger. Cracks spread across the chamber floor, thin glowing veins of red. The creature's whisper slithered through the room. "He is mine." Marina felt her skin crawl. "No," she whispered, stepping forward. "He's not." She turned back to Thorian. "We have to do this now." He hesitated a long, painful moment, then took a deep breath. "Tell me what you need," he said. Marina squeezed his shoulder. "Light. Strength. And Elias's courage." Thorian held his son close. "I will help you. But if he falters." "We stop," Marina said. He nodded. They approached the broken circle. Elias trembled violently. His eyes darted between the lines in the floor and the shadows clinging to the walls. Marina knelt beside the circle. "Elias," she whispered, "this symbol is your memory. It's your fear. It's where she hurt you. You don't have to walk inside it. Just reach toward it." Elias shook his head no. He didn't want to touch it. Marina took his hand gently. "I'll be here," she said. "Your father will be here. You are not alone." Thorian knelt too, holding both of them. "Elias," he whispered, voice cracking, "my son. I swear to you, nothing in this world will ever touch you again. I am with you." The boy's breathing steadied. He lifted his small, trembling hand. The moment his fingers reached over the broken circle, he gasped. A blast of icy wind shot upward. The ritual circle flared with blinding light. Marina shielded her eyes. Thorian wrapped his cloak around Elias. The shadows on the walls twisted, gathering into the tall, contorted creature. It lunged toward Elias. "No!" Marina cried. Thorian roared, leaping into its path. He struck the monster with a force that shook the room, but the creature barely flinched. Its voice echoed deep, vast, endless. "He is mine." Elias screamed. Marina grabbed the boy's hand. "Stay with me, sweetheart. Look at me, look at me." His eyes snapped to hers. In that moment, something passed between them, something deep, ancient, and powerful. Marina didn't fully understand it. But Elias did. His voice trembled as he whispered, "Break the mark." Marina's eyes widened. The mark. The broken circle. Thorian. The circle. It must be destroyed. Thorian twisted, his vampire strength flaring. He drove his fist into the stone floor, cracking the outer ring. The creature shrieked. The shadows peeled away from the walls, screaming like steam tearing from boiling water. Marina wrapped her arms around Elias as he convulsed. The circle pulsed harder. Cracks spread. Symbols shattered. Blood magic broke like glass. With each crack, the creature shrank, distorting, flickering, dissolving. Thorian struck again. The stone shattered. A vertical beam of blinding white light shot upward. The creature let out an ear-splitting scream. No. The light swallowed it whole. And then, silence. The glow faded. The trembling stopped. Marina found herself kneeling on the cold stone floor, clutching Elias tightly. Thorian collapsed beside her. Elias breathed softly, weak, but alive. Marina brushed the hair from his forehead. "You did it," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You did it, sweetheart." Thorian touched Elias's cheek with trembling fingers. "My brave boy," he whispered, voice shaking. "My son." Elias whispered one final word before slipping into an exhausted sleep. Free. For 3 days, the manor stood in complete stillness. No footsteps in the hall. No whispers in the walls. No shadows curling at the edge of sight. The house felt lighter. Almost peaceful. Marina spent every hour at Elias's bedside. He slept like he hadn't slept in years, deep, healing sleep. Thorian sat nearby, watching his son with quiet heartbreak and fierce protectiveness. The council guards kept Dr. Reich imprisoned in the high tower. His screams echoed faintly throughout the manor at night, but now, they meant nothing. The true horror was gone. On the 3rd morning, Elias woke. Slowly. His eyes opened with a soft, gentle clarity they had never held before. He looked around, confused at first. Then he saw Marina. She smiled. "Good morning, sweetheart." He blinked. Then smiled back. A real smile.